Hello and good day. This is Reanimated, the podcast about zombies and whatnot. Today, of course, we're not talking about zombies, probably. It's Widow's Bay Season 1 as we continue our review. I am Stuart. Joining me, as always, the invincible H.A. Conrad. Hello, H.A.
Hello. I don't know that it's not about zombies
We haven't seen any
yet.
yet, but there is evidence of undead or hard to kill people. So,
True. More so
but
in the next episode, I'd say. But hints of it in the first the first one we're going to be discussing.
And the way this show is working with its like love letter to every single genre of horror, zombies have to make an appearance
Oh,
at some
of
point.
course they do. Of course they do. But until just for a second, we're going to talk about a couple of little news tidbits that are in the news. These days, and very exciting news that Widow's Bay has been actually renewed for another season, which is wonderful news. But, as with anything like this that is so well written, so carefully designed, always worry a little bit about the second season because often they sometimes let you down. Thinking about Lost here is a really good example of that. I don't know. Are
Yeah.
you as nervous as I am about it? It feels so, I don't know. I don't know if they have enough material to do a second season,
It
but we'll
feels
see.
bad to have any doubt in Katie Dippold as a showrunner at this point because she's really just hit this one out of the park.
She
But
has.
you do worry when somebody takes 10 years to make their perfect show that maybe they don't have anything left in the tank for the second effort. But that's a glass half empty thought. So I will keep it to, well, I've already just said it on a podcast, but I
Yeah.
will attempt to repress that thought and only send positive vibes to season two.
I think she's got it. She's great. So I think it'll be excellent. And I just think that this is such a well-crafted show that it's going to be very difficult, I think, unless, of course, she probably has it all mapped out. I don't want to doubt her because this has been just amazing. So very excited to see that and to hear that news.
Yes.
Um,
What some people were not excited about over the last week was when a few dozen New York actors were received a casting call to be zombies and we're going to get paid $75 to be in makeup for a couple of hours. They showed up to what they thought was a mock demonstration,
mhm.
only to find out that it was a real demonstration, that they were there to represent the landlords in a landlords versus tenant protests on the streets of New York in opposition to Mayor Mamdani's some of his rent stabilization schemes. So the story is kind of ironically hiring actors who are willing to work for $40 an hour or less, who are most likely renters to represent the oppressor in this scenario.
I gotta really question the tactics here, though, because obviously they knew how they were gonna feel once they showed up, and there was a couple of little statements by the association there that makes me think. I mean, if you have to trick people into showing up to do this, then probably something's wrong. But
Yeah.
I don't know that they necessarily want any more people over to their cause. But um. All good, all good. So, and another, this is not like protests or whatever, but there was a bunch of little like I would say clickbaity articles that The Last of Us season three had ground to a halt, not filming, and it's paused because of the World Cup. But that actually took over the sort of news feed instead of some really cool news, which is that one of the Sarsgaard clan is joining the cast for season three.
Yeah, and it would be Peter Sarsgaard, he of the sad eyes, and he's going to be playing an original character in season three, Amon, yeah, the leader of the Seraphites. So cool news. And Craig Mazin, I think, has got this, and I remain eternally optimistic for season three.
Definitely optimistic, and I'm always happy to, I like Peter Sarsgaard a lot. He's great. So we'll see how it goes, and I'm sure it will continue filming without any delay once the World Cup sort of madness is over.
Yeah. With a 2027 release now, which
Yes,
I think we'd kind of anticipated that,
we
if
knew
not
that. Yeah,
later than that. So
yeah.
I'm okay with that. They've got a date in mind. That's good.
And
Other
maybe go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah. So In the Flesh is coming to stream on Disney. HA and I had a few moments of nostalgia thinking about that show, which was cut too short. Should have had at least another season, if not two. And so I guess people who haven't had the pleasure of seeing, are there two seasons of In the Flesh? I think it is two. Um,
Think it was just two,
yeah.
and it was just about to hit another storyline. So I actually saw a bunch of, I saw this hitting our little news feed, and I was kind of hoping that it was a reboot potentially, but no, it's just because it got licensed to be able to stream on Disney Plus, which is
Hmm.
great because until now it's only been available on BBC, I think maybe BritBox, and so not available to the wider audience. And so I'm glad other people might get to enjoy this. It was really a fantastic show, though admittedly I have not watched it for a while, so I wonder if my take on it would be the same. But it was really an impressive show and too short-lived. We've got Harriet Kane's going on to do Bridgerton, which is a very different kind of genre, unless it takes a twist that we don't expect. But hope others get to enjoy this out there on the Disney streaming channels.
That is a bit of a twist to go from Jem, the cider chugging, zombie killing, my brother's a zombie, to a Featherington dressed in frilly gowns, kind of
But
harping at her husband.
she's all, she's still pretty dramatic, so, we'll see. Maybe there is a twist there that we don't yet see for her. But in any case, I'm curious to see if I don't know, maybe the show will pick up speed and maybe there will be an interest in a reboot
That's
at some
that
point.
to me. That's like the upside is if it gets enough interest. Maybe if there's like somebody's clearly still shopping this thing around, it's still valuable. It has value. So if it gets enough interest, maybe they would see a way to do another season of it or reboot it. That would be cool. And then final piece of news this week. It's apparently Land of the Living Dead Fest or something at the Monroeville Mall right now over this weekend. And as a part of that, someone from the Daily Dead talked to Greg Nicotero, who was there, who shared that he's also been signed on to work on Twilight of the Dead, the upcoming posthumous Romero film, helmed by the Paz brothers, and he's going to be doing effects and makeup. So that's actually super good news, and frankly, just kind of makes me more excited about Twilight of the Dead. I'm a big fan of Nicotero's work.
Me too. So I'm excited that he's attached himself to it. Part of me is a little bit trepidatious, feeling a little bit of anxiety, but I'm because part of it makes me wonder if he signed on because it's having a little bit of trouble, but if he's attached to it, maybe there is a good chance it will be better than we thought it could be. So I will choose to remain optimistic
Hope
about it.
springs eternal. And where hope doesn't necessarily spring eternal, nor should it, is the small community of Widows Bay, which we
Yes.
return to for episodes 5 and 6, entitled What to Expect on Your Trip, Haha, Double Entendre, and Our History, which is a flashback episode.
Right.
In What to Expect on Your Trip, we meet the hero of this story in the cold open, cold in more than one meaning also, because it's very snowy, and we see a man who's apparently having a hard time fall to his knees and start gobbling up some black shriveled looking mushrooms. And those I think are the hero of this episode, uh, gobbling them up in the cold open. And then we are immediately start seeing some funky camera work with the camera going upside down and sideways and spiraling down a hallway as Tom Loftus is handing Dale a proclamation that the city or the community must be under a curfew. I think it's from 7 to 7. Is that what it said? I think it did.
Yes,
If
something
you
like
recall.
that. And this
Yeah.
is all following the Reverend's death, and so And obviously, there's been other things contributing to the decision that Tom has made about the curfew.
But he's finally taking things seriously, right? Like, but the funny thing is, Wick still doesn't think he's doing enough. Uh,
Right. He thinks he should be out. He should just be getting people off the island.
he's yeah, like,
He
look,
should
this
be
island's still chock full of tourists that you brought here, and now, you believe, don't you, Mr. Mayor, that things are going sideways? And I think Tom does, but I think he's also still trying to do damage control.
right. And sort of interspersed between these opening scenes, there's a little bit of like one of the things that this show does is mess a little bit with time. So you get to see things in like very slight flashbacks and things like that. So we see a little clip of the Reverend's funeral, and it's you know one of those things where people are talking and it's really terrible eulogies or whatever, and kind of funny moments where someone's like, everybody doesn't have to talk, it's okay. And then also then you cut to where they Tom and Wick and Patricia were going through the Reverend's study and find, there's like a bunch of things that are burned up. They find like one page that is unscathed or at least mostly whole, and their plan to kind of figure things out. So and this is where they come across this there's like a carved into the desk is something that says my eye is open or the eye is open, something like that. And they also discover that the Reverend had both been trying to call Tom multiple times as well as another number. And one thing that it's like, this is a tragedy. This show really does do the comedy piece really well in moments of high duress and stress. And in this moment, they call the number, and it's just like they're not very savvy and end up on I don't know what you would call it, like a trail to the other person that the Reverend was calling, which turns out to be a drug dealer.
Yeah, and
Patricia
Tom
knows.
has found some of those mushrooms on his desk,
Right.
wrapped in a napkin, handkerchief. But yeah, the act of them, both Tom and Patricia both call this number, and the guy's a little cagey, but it's just like, I'm not going to tell you. Like, if you call me and say, "Who am I speaking to?" He's going to just hang up because he's a drug dealer, and that's not how he
Right.
operates.
But Patricia's like the Reverend sent me, and he's just, and
Yeah,
they
the
call
Reverend
the
gave me your
same
number.
number.
Oh, do you want an appointment? Like, so she figures out a way to get an invitation and an address, and so all three of them show up. And you think, you know, three people show up to a drug dealer's house. Maybe that's normal. Maybe it would set off some alarm bells for this guy. But this is Todd, and he is actually super chill and quite friendly and quite a good comedic character who steals a
I
few of these scenes.
I also think potentially a former love interest of Patricia. She starts to try to talk about how they know each other, and then she gets cut off
Hmm.
by Tom. But anyway, they discover that these mushrooms are something called clear sight that only grow on the island, but also that they're incredibly powerful and not and very dangerous. Like, so Todd's describing, he says that the Reverend had taken them and he must have been like, really enlightened. And Tom's like, yeah, he committed suicide. And then he talks about another person that they knew that is now incapacitated essentially. And so then Wick's like, yeah, well, I guess I'm gonna have some.
Yeah,
And
I
Tom
don't
is
know
just
how he
like,
makes that
what?
leap of logic. That's kind of wild, right?
Yeah. And so, Todd conveniently is able to make a little drink. But alas, um, Tom is the one who ends up drinking it because Todd thought he was Wick.
Yeah.
So,
And Todd has also talked about this sacred geometry and this thing that Brian Williams, the other guy he knows who took these mushrooms, was drawing while he was tripping. And it is just a crudely outdrawn outline of a hand. And I have since seen on the internet that when in episode one, when you're looking at the weather radar, the island of Widow's Bay kind of also looks a little bit like a hand. And so there's some internet conjecture that it's not a bad hand drawing, that it's actually a map of the island, is what potentially people think. Some one person on the internet thinks might be going on with these hand drawings, because not only Brian Williams, but also then Tom in the midst. in the darkest depths of his trip, is also drawing his hand, or the island, depending on how you look at it.
Right. And I don't know, the whole thing with Todd is incredibly funny because he tries to be mystical, but he's really just, I don't know, this,
I mean, yeah, the Peace Center is just a very scarcely furnished room with a mattress and some dirty looking sheets
yes, it's
and a
the,
giant lizard.
yes. Um,
And then he has to, and then he pieces out. He's like, on the one hand, he's going to be there as a shaman to like guide this journey for Tom, who is very, 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 very distraught.
yep.
But instead, he has to go find his girlfriend's cat and leaves with a warning: "Don't look at any mirrors." Of
And
course,
there's a
there's a mirror
mirror.
on the back
Yeah.
of the door as he closes it. And then I love the way that they did the effects of Tom descending into his trip because with just like the lights going off. And the first time it happens, they kind of go off one at a time. Through the outside windows, and then the rest of the episode they just kind of cut to black and then they have him pop up, and that's kind of how we are along for the ride with Tom in this episode as he is taking his journey. He kind of pops up into lucidity, but he's clearly been doing a lot of things in these blackout moments, and so all we get to see are his moments of lucidity, and I thought that was a pretty cool way to do this.
Agree. Um, So, and then it's nice because you do get the sense that it, especially because of the context of what other characters are saying, that he is doing some just absolutely insane things during his time when he is blacked out. So you get these little flashes where it's like he'll suddenly he'll like kind of flip in to reality, and Patricia will be like, "Stop yelling at me," or
He'll be
someone,
screaming just out of
yeah,
the blue, and people are
yeah,
all like, "What is wrong with you?" And he's also very concerned about Evan because he
right,
Evan had been in his office, and then he apparently self-reported that he would just go to Ruth's house.
right,
But like Tom knows that that's not going to be the case. But
right.
by the time he realizes that Evan is in the wind, he's already tripping. It's too late. He can't do anything about it. But that is kind of an undercurrent of what is a bad trip for him is that he's trying to figure out where his son is so he can keep him safe. Because he was going to just try and keep him inside all day and all night, which is also the subject of their argument later in the episode. So, but he's really frustrating Patricia and Wick and eventually Rosemary, and gas station attendants and all everybody he comes into contact with. He is just annoying throughout the
Well,
episode.
and but this is the interesting thing. So this thing is supposed to be called clear sight. And so some of whatever journey this is supposed to have some bearing on whatever he's doing. So while he might be worried about Evan, it occurred to me because I've actually now watched this episode a few times. But what occurred to me is that maybe that is a piece of it, especially where this episode ends, is that Evan is a key to something. It isn't just his protection of his own son, which I do think is part of it. But maybe this is a bearing on the larger story about what's happening on the island. And that's actually a little bit worrying given where we are seeing and some of the things that are revealed in the next episode. Um,
There's nothing reassuring about what the experiences that Tom has
no,
on this mushroom.
no. And while it is interspersed with like a lot of comedy, because it is funny,
Yeah.
there's also just a complete, you can understand like why he is totally terrified. That said, the things that they add to it, like with Patricia putting him on like a children's leash, like a
I thought it was
like
like a
and
dog leash. It's one of those
yeah.
extendo leashes. But yeah,
And
when he wakes up and he's like drawing and he's got a leash on, you just can't help but laugh. But also, this is when Wick is like, "Hey, have you had any visions yet? Or you
right.
seen anything yet?" Because they're just waiting for him to
Yeah.
reveal the answers that they're looking for. But meanwhile, Wick and Patricia are making progress with the scrap of paper they found in Bryce's office. So they're able to decipher that this is a journal page, and we
But
learn a lot more
apparently,
about that.
yeah, and but apparently, Tom is the one that directed Wick to go there and said, he is directing some kind of quest, or getting info because he basically told Wick he would get the answers he needed wherever it was, and it's the Historical Society with his ex-girlfriend. And it turns out that the page of the that they found in the Reverend's office is from the wife of the island, the first island protector and founder, and that actually is sort of revealed through this in very choppy ways throughout this episode. And so, which is leads to the next episode, which is a pretty big flashback. So we have that part, but then we also have the Evan piece of this story, which is, Evan, we get to see what he's been up to, and it really is just his usual shenanigans. He's got his friends, and they're still trying to impress these tourist girls that they've met. And the place that they end up is that scary house, the boogeyman's house. And this is like their little urban legend. And they're just doing that thing that teenagers do, which is like, gonna dare you to do something scary. And Evan is constantly trying to prove himself. There's definitely a little bit of this, I am the mayor's son, and because of this, I'm gonna be this rebel and do these things that are just completely just pushing boundaries. And in this case, I think he just wanted to impress the girl that's in the car.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
sure that that's what it is. And you know what? A question I have about Evan is also like, so we find out, well, we found out last episode, he's never been off the island.
right,
I mean, I wonder, has PJ, has his other friend? They don't really reveal that, but
right.
you have to think that just about everybody who was born on the island
Has
hasn't
not.
left the island, or if they did, they probably died because that seems to be actually be a true thing.
Right.
So
So
it would be a little weird for, I think, PJ to be throwing shade at Evan for never having left the island, unless PJ's from the mainland and moved here with his family. And that
and he
certainly
might have
could have
been.
happened. But it just
Uh,
feels a little bit weird.
right. Um, and so they continue the thread here of the boogeyman legend, which is Patricia's nemesis or whatever, the whole thing that she's always trying to deal with her friend group or frenemy group or whatever you want to call them. And it's very much that thing where it's like a little bit like the Boo Radley house or I don't know, even the Burbs or whatever. It's like that whole trope where there's like this house that the kids shouldn't go into because, right? And
He sure
so
is about to go into it and
yeah.
saved by the
And
sheriff.
I
But
will
I'm
tell you, it looks pretty scary. It's all boarded up.
yeah,
It does not look good. And I do think that one thing they do so incredibly well with this show is really doing that, building up that tension and anxiety. They've got the music is excellent in building that suspense, and in this case, they really just bring you to the edge of it, and then suddenly our wonderful sheriff appears. And he is carrying a lot of water in this community for the cause of keeping, the order. And just in time, he saves Evan from himself in this case. Although he does open the door, so
he opens, does he not close it?
don't think he closes it.
Oh, okay. I mean, maybe that's significant, maybe not, but he doesn't go inside, and that's, I think, the main thing because we were told that anybody who goes in there dies. So
Well, they were also the things that the kids were saying is that they couldn't kill whoever the boogeyman was, so
yeah,
he's buried in the basement. And I have to think it's not a good thing to leave that door open. So
certainly when we know who else was buried on this island without being
right,
killed
right.
from episode 6. Ooh, yeah, chilly stuff. But so I think shortly after that interaction with the sheriff, the kids decide to probably call it a night and are driving home. But meanwhile, Tom has been pawned off to Rosemary, I think, after the historical society, where he's flashing in and out of awareness. Coming to at a gas station, which is just one of the best scenes of this whole trip for
This
him,
really
where
is great.
with the way that this scene ends with him like lunging for his loafer that's in a big puddle of milk and the gas station attendant is screaming at him like, no, I told you to stay out. But meanwhile, Rosemary's
Door
just
is
ignoring
also
them.
the door is also off
Yeah,
the
he's like
gate.
torn a door off of a cooler, spilled milk, and Rosemary meanwhile is just doing scratchers and ignoring everybody and saying to Tom, don't move the car anymore because apparently he's just like completely on weird autonomy when he's blacked out. He's also had a meeting with with members of the city, like angry people angry about his curfew and the fact that it was going to interfere with fireworks. But because he's been so incapacitated, the fireworks went off. The curfew is not being maintained. Also, the sheriff was like pissed that he'd even suggested doing a curfew since he only has jail cells for 6 people, and he's like, nobody's gonna do the curfew, and I'm only gonna be able to arrest 6 people. So, what was your plan? He's doing a lot of things without looping in the sheriff, which makes a lot of sense. And in this episode, the sheriffs had to take Patricia in for a statement because people are going to press charges that she tried to roofie them or whatever it was that she had done at the cocktail party.
Right.
A lot of things are going badly, which also kind of informs why Patricia is at the end of her rope a little bit.
Yeah. And I think but I think that the little journey here and the little tidbits that we get are really good. Well, I feel like some of the things that we're missing here may come up later. So some of his blackout periods, maybe we find out a little bit more later what happens.
Yeah, I mean we're not he's not like completely out of the woods at the end of this
Right,
episode. He is throwing up a lot, and maybe that means he is coming to the end of it. I don't know if it's like an ayahuasca sort of thing.
right. And we also know that he has never been able to make himself throw up because he did initially
And
when he
Patricia's sticking her
and he
hand down
I
his
know, and
throat.
he just can't.
Oh
But
God, their chemistry, these two,
so
Matthew
good.
Rhys and Katie O'Flynn, are just like they're bouncing off of each other in the best ways
Right.
possible in this episode.
But the ending is again Evan related, but also and this is why I think that's going to take maybe center stage later. I could be wrong, but like there is we go back to a flashback when his wife was I think they were going to go to the mainland because she was maybe in labor or they were going to go there for the baby, to have the baby, and they're on the ferry as she is, as they're, I guess, going, and she becomes blind. And he does say, turn the ferry around, turn the boat around. And so I think Evan is actually, that's why Evan is born on the island,
Okay, that makes sense.
but she does not die in childbirth as we have been led to believe. She is in
Well,
a
he said complications
right.
from childbirth.
Yeah,
I don't know.
so but everybody assumed that it was like right as the baby was born, but it wasn't
Hmm.
apparently. So
She
she's
sure seems to
catatonic.
be alive, but doesn't look great. He's like, she doesn't seem okay. And the doctor's just like, give it time.
Yep, and she's catatonic for sure. And so
But sitting upright and yeah, scary. That's a scary face. That's not the face you want to see.
right, and then this episode ends on a very dark note where we've got the mayor basically praying and not sure exactly what happens here, except when he turns and it's like, again, this is like such a successful way to edit and to film, but he looks into the darkness. We hear a little bit of demonic like rumbling or something because he basically says he'll do anything to save his son and protect his son. And then you hear this. And so um, gotta wonder what kind of a deal he makes, or if he makes a deal with whatever's in the dark. Which, we know there's a presence on the island. We know something's there, and
Yeah,
we also know that the first mayor slash Lord Protector, whatever they call it, is you know, and again, we find out more in the next episode. But this is something that I think he may have to make some choices and we have to see what happens. Like he has always been the protector of Evan, whether Evan likes it or not, and so very curious to see how this plays out and whether Evan is allowed to understand what's actually happening. One thing I did notice, and I've noticed in a couple of episodes, they do play around with mirrors a lot, and there's been a few things where maybe it's not on purpose, but it sometimes looks like Evan is not reflected in the mirrors. So I'm wondering if that will be a thing or whether that's just something that they're playing with or they have this alternate reality idea going on. But that's been in a few scenes with him and Evan, there's weird things that happen with the mirrors when Evan is in front of them
interesting.
or supposed to be in front of them. And so I'm curious to see if that ends up playing out at some point.
Wow. Okay. The
So,
it just keeps going deeper and deeper.
yep.
What's interesting also about this episode, after the very unsettling final scene, and he's like kind of, it sounds like he's maybe getting instructions from Satan. I don't know what's going on there. Then they cut to black, and it's like this cheery reggae pop song is in the credits as they roll, and I'm just like, oh, all right, I guess that's the amuse bouche. That's the sorbet at the end of the horrible meal. Um, but then we we roll right into episode 6, Our History, where we open up with I'm forgetting her name again. Kelly Gilpin, is that it? Betty Gilpin
Betty
and
Gilpin.
Betty
Yeah.
Gilpin, who is playing Sarah Westcott, who is going to marry the Lord Protector of the Widow's Bay, and she's coming from the mainland. And she's coming from less advantageous circumstances as like a 40-year-old uh spinster. But she's leaping at the opportunity to be married to this guy.
Right.
And this guy, Richard
Warren.
Warren, is played by Hamish Linklater, who we know and love from Midnight Mass.
And these are two fantastic actors. She's in Glow, and she was also in Mrs. Davis, which I highly recommend. It's a super weird. It may even be harder to watch now, given its AI themes, but it she is incredible in it. So I highly recommend it. And she's really excellent in this role. And, this is apparently they filmed a lot of this episode on the Rebecca Nurse estate, which is in what would have been it's Danvers, Massachusetts, but it's kind of like Salem. It's Salem adjacent. And Rebecca Nurse was one of the women who was accused of witchcraft and executed and later exonerated. So it must have been really interesting to film this specifically on that homestead,
Yeah.
because it's got a lot of those tendencies, and those types of vibes. But the two of them are really, really great in this. And it's weird because it's terrifying, but it's also hilarious. Like they really walk that line incredibly well here for sure. Um, and so, they have there is definitely like this happy optimism that Sarah has on the boat coming over.
Yeah,
Just,
it only lasts, I'd say, about 10 minutes in an
yeah. But,
episode.
she even gets like kind of a positive review of the Reverend, by the first person she meets, who's just
Yeah.
like, yes, like we owe everything to him. He's the protector, and everybody's got full bellies and is living through the winter and all this other thing. And she kind of makes this joke, but like there is definitely a godlike adoration, at least in this particular person's view. And she seems to be really excited about that until she actually meets him. So,
And it
and
turns out the pastor isn't actually a huge fan of Richard Warren, but
right.
he's just kind of talking him up a little bit before Sarah meets him. And I think they get married the very day that she arrives in town. He's written some weird oaths and vows into the ceremony that are a little bit on the freaky side, like "you're my servant, you will obey me," etc. I mean, not I guess that's surprising for 18th century, but not great. And then she meets her five new children that she had no idea were part of the package, which is kind of fun. I mean, as disturbing and like anchored in historical, what feels like historical accuracy this episode is. It also has definitely several moments of levity that probably don't really jive with puritanical style lifestyle on this island, but they work for me really well. They're pretty funny.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, I think that this is, as far as flashback episodes go, I think they did a pretty nice job with this for sure.
Yeah, and it's definitely helping with we've gotten an email from our favorite special zombie correspondent Kyle Diaz, who has also been watching the show and was talking about its rewatchability. And I think you're starting to feel that too, HA, having watched this episode a few times. Um, that there is a lot to be gleaned from rewatching this show, and this historical episode actually goes to inform a lot of the sort of set dressing that we've seen throughout the
Right.
show up to this point. Like the paintings,
Hmm.
some of the paintings that were in the inn might play into the way this episode ends, I think. And the paintings in the historical society obviously are like literal depictions of these characters that we're spending time with now, and down to their accessories, right? Like Warren's necklace and things
Right.
like that.
There's also a bunch of paintings in the mayor's office or outside the mayor's office that I noticed, rewatching the last episode. So basically, what happens is that you'll watch an episode and then you're like, oh, wait, I remember this thing from this other episode. And then you want to go back and rewatch it. So it's almost like the layers just keep piling up, and so you kind of want to go back and see, oh, what did I miss? Which is how I noticed a little bit of the mirror thing with Evan, which I definitely didn't catch before. And that could be honestly nothing. That could just be sort of adding to that atmosphere, but maybe it will be something later on. But with the paintings, I definitely noticed during the the last episode when Tom is sitting in his office, there's like a pretty large portrait of what I think maybe supposed to be. I don't know who exactly is supposed to be, but their faces are kind of warped by the glass and everything, which are adding to his wonderful time.
Hmm.
But I think we're going to see, it's tying all these things together. And in the past, in the historical society, there's like a wax figure of Sarah sitting there, and we've been seeing all of these things related to Sarah's story. We just didn't know it.
Yeah.
So I think that that's an incredibly clever way of tying things together. And so I'm really enjoying as they're like tying together all these little trails as they go through and storylines as they continue on this little journey.
I mean, if we assume that her story is what we see in this episode,
Right.
it's impressive that she has so much in the historical society, considering she was a part of the community for maybe 3 days.
Right.
Right? Does she have portraits? I don't mean we didn't get to see her sitting for one, but maybe she had time, or maybe it's more than 3 days and it just feels like it because they really they just focus on the action, but it does feel like it's basically 3 days because she gets married to the guy the first night he leaves when he hears the church bell ring. Later that night, she sees him with he's been eating mushrooms and his eyes are white, but he's able to like come out of it and say, "Leave me alone."
Yep.
Um, then the following night, he's murdered somebody, and then she decides that she's going to narc on him to the
Yep.
pastor, who lets her in on the fact that, oh yeah, well, we're not all cool
Hmm.
with Lord Warren, and in fact, we have a cabal of conspirators. And then so the next night, she leaves the door unlocked so somebody else can try and kill him. Doesn't go well. The next day, she's locked in the house, and the next night that's when she runs away with the kids, really, right? Like it's maybe 4 days, 3 nights, or
Right.
is it four
But
nights, 5 days? So
but
it's
she
not a
does.
long time.
It's not a long time, but she does a lot of good work in this time, and
She
I
really
guess
does. She has an arc. Like
she
she goes
does.
from kind of meek to pretty badass.
Yeah, and she also, it shows a couple of things that we didn't know, which is when she gets locked into the house, there's actually a secret passage underneath, which has a lot of different terrifying little torture rooms before she climbs out of the well. I feel like that's going to come into play.
Yeah, the most significant of the rooms is the one with the chair
Yep,
facing that that double door because that appears to be the sacrificial offering room, I
yep,
think.
I think so.
Yeah.
And then, but in terms of the things she's left behind, they have her journal. So maybe they've just sort of built up things around her. They definitely have just little artifacts that were possibly at this house, although for them to last that long is kind of impressive.
Yeah.
Than what we saw at the end of this episode, like how would they have gotten some of those things? But yes, she's got a really tight storyline and a really good storyline where her sort of um awakening, so to speak, from this optimistic, somewhat naive woman turns into this powerhouse, basically. And she, goes from sort of expecting other people to take action to being the person taking action herself. And, one thing that I do really like here is that she meets the kids. She doesn't know them very well, but in the end, they all become allies
Well, one of them
because
saves her life,
one
doesn't
of
he?
them
Yeah.
saves her life and basically says he killed my mother. And she's like, at that point, before she was like, I've only just met them, but at that point she's like, we're getting out of here.
Yeah.
And so she takes responsibility and gets them into the boat, and saves them from another zombie who is the doctor's wife. Zombie-esque or demonic person, however you
Yeah.
want to put it.
Possessed probably more than zombie, right?
Yeah,
For our
for our
purposes.
purposes, yeah. So anyway, she's got a really cool little interesting story arc. She does an amazing this actor, Betty Gilpin is awesome and she does an amazing she basically like fills every inch of this performance and in a good way like with all the details that some of the details we've been looking for um and then we have ultimately we see what happened to the first mayor, and he's buried alive essentially with his little and Wick at one point says, I think he may have been buried with the necklace, or thinks that for some reason.
But doesn't the pastor take it off of him?
I think so, but Wick seems to think that it was buried with him.
Okay.
So I don't know what happens here, but
He's saying a lot of stuff as they're burying him. He
right,
like because he's been drugged, so maybe he doesn't have his power. But we've seen him be stabbed and get up and kill a guy. But he's saying like the island doesn't want you to take that my necklace, or
right,
doesn't my island isn't going to let my kids go. It's actually going to kill them now that you've let them off the
right. And
island.
he also
He
says
seems
that they
quite
have
distraught when he says that.
he's very distraught, but he also says that they have to um uh, you know, basically make a sacrifice, that he's been protecting them from all of this, and that if they don't do it, people will continue to die from the plague, which also is interesting because it means that he hasn't sacrificed somebody, or he hasn't done whatever the island wanted him to do, which is why these things are happening.
Yeah,
So
that
that's
is an
also an
interesting point.
interesting,
Like he's not doing his job on some level.
right, which
He
is
hasn't
part of
murdered
why
enough people.
I guess not. So that is an interesting point, which I wonder if we'll learn about a little bit more.
Well, I mean, and maybe we will because the episode ends with a cut back to the present day where Wick is exhuming a grave in that same graveyard. I'm not sure if it was exactly the same plot where they put him down,
Right,
but Wick is there with a few of the other islanders, and that's kind of where the episode ends.
indeed. So,
But well, also, yeah, with Sarah having rowed out to sea because the merchantman left without her, she's trying to catch up to it. But it's kind of foggy, and you're like, I don't know. But we don't really know what's going to happen with her story. Maybe she'll show up again in another flashback. It would
I
feel like a bit of a waste not to use Betty Gilpin one more time.
I hope we see her again because
We're
she's really
certainly going to
awesome.
see Hamish Linklater again.
I think we will,
Yeah.
for sure, because we see Wick, doing his thing. And so, yeah, I am curious to see what happens here. And I definitely think we haven't fully seen, we haven't seen the end of this particular story. So, and this is, the whole thing where they're starting to go out to the boat is the one that is the part, like, I was like, oh, you know, there's the whole painting in the inn.
Yeah. Of all the little
And
people in the water. Yeah.
there's that one, but I think there's also one at the Historical Society. So I definitely think that's gonna all come into play at some point. Maybe they'll head back to the inn. I don't know. So yeah. So and I will say, okay, this is one of my predictions is that there's some tie between current mayor and first mayor, other than just the title. I think Evan's probably like
A
a
descendant.
descendant potentially, just based on how and maybe it's not, maybe it's just that they're both holding the same title, but it feels like maybe that might be a piece of it. It could just be
It could be. His dad
that,
was he described his dad as being an islander
right.
and
So,
a miserable old salt also, it felt like.
um,
Which certainly I think you could apply to Richard Warren. He is a cheerless, cold bastard. He only really shows any emotion when he's being buried alive.
right. So I'm curious to see how all this plays out. And very, seeing if maybe my prediction's wrong, but it just feels like there's a lot of it feels like the focus on Evan isn't just going to be a dad trying to deal with his unruly teenager. So,
Yeah, I think that has a good chance of coming true, and we might get to find out in the next couple episodes, which are entitled "Seasickness and Your Baggage," which we will get to the next time we talk about it. Anything else to add, HA?
that is it. But I hope everybody else is enjoying watching this as much as us. Would love to hear what you think. Send us a line, reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com.
Alrighty, well, see you next time. Toodaloo.
Bye bye.